So first of all, I just want to start out by welcoming everyone and thanking you all for joining this latest installment of Powering Business with Blockchain. For those of you who may be new to this series, just for some background, during these sessions, we really like to host leaders and executives from across different industries to discuss how they are thinking about blockchain technology in the context of their businesses and the industries in which they work, how their efforts have evolved and really grown over time, and to really ultimately showcase real use cases in the space. So by way of introduction, I'm Morgan Krupetsky, Director of Business Development for Institutions and Capital Markets at Avalabs. Today, I'm really excited to be hosting a couple of our institutional partners, Siddhartha and Eric Mitzel from Intain. Together, they are bringing structured finance on-chain, and we'll go into exactly what that means and how they do it. Both Sid and Eric have been in the space for a while now, in crypto years, probably many decades. Their first platform, Intain Admin, has already administered over $6 billion in asset-backed securities to date. So we're especially excited that they chose Avalanche for their Intain Markets build. We'll go into more details about the structured finance space overall, the possible places where the industry might be ripe for disentanglement, what Intain is aiming to solve, and why blockchain, especially Avalanche's subnet architecture, was an ideal solution for them. So first, I'd love to start out by asking you both to introduce yourselves. Tell us a bit about yourselves, your backgrounds, and maybe just a high-level overview of what Intain is, and then we can go into more detail from there. So Siddhartha, let me turn it over to you.
Thanks, Morgan. Siddharth, I'm the founder and CEO of Intain. My background is financial services operations, first as part of a joint venture with Deutsche Bank. And then I ran a joint venture with State Street as its CEO, running fund admin and custody operations. Founded Intain with the idea of kind of digitizing structured finance, blockchain being a critical component of it back in 2018, and we can discuss the rest as we go along.
Okay, yeah, Eric Mitzel. I joined Intain about 1.5 years ago with the interest of seeing a better process flow. I came from the world of administration, corporate trust with Zions Bank, and before that with Bank of New York Mellon, administering the structured product after issuance. And so often the trustee was the point of kind of data reconciliation and interpretation of collateral triggers and covenants, and distributing payment to the investors. Anyhow, it's a process that is very laborious and certainly prone to a lot of headaches. And so some of the solutions that Intain presented through the initial product, Intain Admin, certainly resolved some of that. And then from there, we capitalize and build on that further with Intain Markets.
Awesome, thank you. And so before we go into potentially Intain itself and kind of how it solves some of those issues, let's open it up to you guys. And just if you could kind of just go through the current state of the structured finance industry, particularly for those who might not be as familiar. I think with this audience, we generally have a mix of backgrounds and people coming from different industries. So for those who might not necessarily be as familiar, maybe give us a quick rundown. What does the industry entail? What works? What doesn't work? What's the size of the market? Like, what is the market opportunity that we're talking about? Any kind of context that we could get, I think would be really helpful to kind of set the table.
Sure. So yeah, I'll give it a shot, and people who are from the structured finance background, just kind of excuse me for using some loose terms, which may not be very technically specific, because the aim is that everybody understands that. So if you talk to a lay person, just think of a person who goes to borrow money to buy a house. That person may not realize that his house is not being financed by the bank that's lending, but actually are in effect by someone else's pension fund investment. And what's really happening is that all these loans by that lender are getting pooled with an issuer. That issuer then goes to a verification agent, who may be a custodian bank, who verifies those. Then it is underwritten by an underwriter who creates tranches or slices of that loan, or loan pool rather. which become securities. The low risk, low reward tranches may get invested into by pension funds. The high risk, high reward tranches may get invested into by a hedge fund, and then things in between. Once that investment takes place, month on month, collections for those loans would happen by a servicer. And actually, before the investment happens, a rating agency would rate those. After the investment happens, servicer collects the monies, and the monies are collected. It goes to a trust bank, who then uses the whole model or structure that was created on how the money should be distributed between the pension fund and the hedge fund and everybody in between. And based on that, they distribute the money. So this is a process in which somebody's mortgage is really being financed through, as we saw, the lender, the issuer, custodian, underwriter, rating agency, investor, servicer, trust bank, so on and so forth. So that's how complex the process is. Now, many people's understanding of structured finance is based on either the havoc that was caused by the Lehman collapse or the movie Big Short. Now, I generally avoid referring to the Big Short because a lot of people in the industry think that it unfairly demonizes them. But still, you get a sense of how many parties are involved and how this happens, which means that there's just layers and layers of costs and layers of opacity. And because the process is so cumbersome, just to give you an example, even on our platform this month, a lot of payments based on how the traditional process works will get processed on 25th of March for the month of February. So one way of looking at it is that it is a 25-day delay, but it's not only a delay in payment processing, it is on 25th of March that the investor will get a report about their portfolio, which also means that if something happened on their portfolio on 1st of February, the investor is getting a view on that occurrence 55 days later, or in case of February, and if you're pedantic, 53 days later, maybe. So that is the first order problem. The second order problem is that these layered costs and delayed information mean that a deal less than $150 million is not viable in the US. So the lenders then have to hold these loans in warehouses till it accrues to a size big enough to do a deal. Or even for bigger lenders, like in current circumstances when mortgage volumes are down, they have to keep accumulating those till the deal is possible. So that's really the problem statement of an industry which currently does $2 trillion in issuances, has $13 trillion in outstanding. And in a very, very recent thing, everybody would have known that 60-70% of Silicon Valley Bank's asset book was in mortgage-backed securities.
So there's two things there, Siddhartha, that I think I just would want to emphasize. One, I think the loan performance, the underlying loan performance, investors generally get a sense of several days. You mentioned 55 days later, and generally in the form of an Excel sheet or a PDF, which still is very commonplace today. And then in addition to that, the mentioning of the fact that because of all these intermediaries, as well as the way in which the loan is administered, sub $100 million deals are not really economically viable. And so some of these things I know Intain seeks to solve or does solve. So maybe tell us a little bit about Intain Admin, as well as the Intain Markets platform, and what that seeks to do in terms of potential efficiencies. I know you guys tout boring blockchain as a way to really kind of disentangle and nuance some of the nuances in the industry today, but how blockchain is helping to kind of power some of these solutions, and really not necessarily, and you guys know this better than I do, not necessarily disintermediate, but disentangle some of these processes. So maybe Eric, if you want to kind of just go through the platform itself and maybe how it can kind of address some of those issues that Siddhartha laid out, I think that would be helpful.
Sure. Thanks, Morgan. Yeah, I think I'd start with on that premise of looking not to disintermediate, right? Because our current partners are financial institutions, and we developed admin platform first, which effectively runs data through a blockchain. We write smart contracts that govern the conditions that are present within the trust indenture and responding to the collateral as it's being serviced. So the fact that we built that platform in the administration support of trust banks certainly amplifies the fact that we were looking to help them automate their process. So efficient intermediation, I think, is the term that Siddhartha has coined. And I also like to say automate rather than eliminate, right? So the counterparties that are involved in the transactions in structured finance are many, and in often cases they're required to be there by law, right? And so in that case, many, I think, in kind of the blockchain space might have thought it's kind of an impure approach, which is to connect these counterparties. But certainly in doing so, right, we've designed an infrastructure in which we can process the data moving from one counterparty to the next with that trust, that transparency, that truth that blockchain promises, while creating the infrastructure for each of those counterparties to trust one another, right? That the information they're receiving is accurate, it is verified, and from there, some of the enhanced tools that we add into that, the tape cracker that we use to reconcile the servicer, which is the collateral of the actual underlying asset performance, to absorb that information and reconcile it, the ability to write the smart contracts to dictate how the governing document stipulates who gets paid what, and then the connection with our AI-enabled tool to verify the loan as it's being brought on to chain. All of these things together, again, we're still working with the counterparties, but integrating them in the same ecosystem. And from there, that's where we can drive down transaction costs and certainly deal sizes as well. And I think our target is to deliver about a 2/3 reduction in overall transaction costs compared to the traditional finance. And it's tough to compare apples to oranges, because what we are saying is that you can also do smaller deal sizes, right? So the $100 million traditional auto-backed securitization could still run through Intain markets. We'd love to see that. But we can also, because of that integration and automation, can bring that transaction size down to 10 million or less potentially.
Let's pull the screen up. Yeah.
Oh, and this kind of goes through, actually, if one of you guys want to kind of go through some of these efficiencies. I know, Eric, you mentioned the deal size in terms of making smaller deal sizes, i.e. $8 to $10 million economically viable. I think it'll be maybe helpful to kind of go through some of these other things as well in terms of the costs as well as the timelines and where that comes from as it relates to Intain. I think that would just be helpful as well. And one thing that I would also emphasize that I get really excited about is I think oftentimes in this industry, we see a lot of reports and articles referencing, high level efficiencies, cost savings, but you guys have been at this for so long that you're actually able to, in a range, quantify some of these efficiencies. So would love for one of you to kind of review what that looks like and also, where that comes from or how that's able to be achieved.
Okay, I'll give it a shot. So you mentioned about the Excel and emails. So yes, it's an industry which really uses emails as the workflow and Excel as, in a way, the system of record and computation. So think of it as we are replacing the email as workflow and Excel as system of record with a blockchain, and then computation through smart contracts. So what is then happening is that the whole data flow between the issuer, custodian, servicer, trustee, investor is automated on a blockchain. There is no reconciliation then required between different entities, because earlier everybody was having their own systems shipping around Excels, which then have to be reconciled that everybody agrees to what the data is. So that process is completely eliminated. And because that process is eliminated, then we can write smart contracts on whatever needs to be computed out of it, which, as Eric said, that these indenture have all those, means it's called structured finance because these are structured deals with a lot of complex computations, and then we can execute them. So that's really where the saving comes from. Now, where the transparency comes from in real time is that now it is not that there is an intermediary which is picking data from one source, aggregating, analyzing, and giving it to the investor. Think from investor's point of view. The investor is invested into a security which is backed, let's say, by 5,000 loans. In the platform now, the investor can really zoom into his security and sees all those 5,000 loans. can zoom into every one of those 5,000 loans and will see every single month's payments. So what was 55 days delayed and aggregated is absolutely granular and real time. And because this whole process is automated, it reduces the cost significantly. There are other elements as well, and we can discuss as we go along. For example, we treat this really as a digital platform. So we are not telling all these stakeholders that come to this network because this is the best blockchain network in town and it's a fancy thing, so you should come aboard. We are saying that it is providing you the best digital toolkit for your solution problem. So the verification agent, for example, is verifying these loans and certifying. We are giving them an AI tool which already reads those loans, reconciles, makes it available so that they just look at the exception and certify on the blockchain. So their task is reducing by 70, 80%. And that's actually even before the data entered the blockchain. So it's really a digital automation platform which uses blockchain as a workflow and as a system of record.
Yeah, I would add in that sense of Siddhartha was mentioning the ability to drill down into the loans. Intain, we think as well the platform from repeat issuers and repeat investors that are on the platform, obviously you get comfortable with the process, but over time as well, you're doing some of your own due diligence in a way. As the deal's being structured, you can drill down into the loans and see the concentration limits that are going to get structured into that potential tranche for investment. And so you have the ability to kind of review and assess, yeah, I think there's 10% too many loans out of Florida. Let's kick those out. And then the issuer can replace those with other loans that have been mapped to the pool. And that drives down some of the transaction costs that occur from that warehouse facility to the securitization facility from the underwriter. And then there's loan substitutions because those assets are performing as the deal is being structured. So again, in totality, as the platform matures and more deals and volume are processed through Intain markets, we certainly think there'll be that ability to do deals even faster with less, kind of data discovery and due diligence. Obviously, you want to do the proper due diligence, but that you'll have a way to do that directly within the platform itself.
And Siddhartha, you mentioned also the use of AI. Can you guys talk about that a little bit in terms of the role that plays and how that interweaves with the blockchain component?
Sure. So currently there are these entities called verification agents. Mostly they're custodians, but they may not be, who have to verify that the data about the loan that is being offered for structuring and investment, that data is correct. So what they would do is they have all the loan contracts available to them. They will match it against the data, and then they issue a certificate. The way we are using it is we are automating this process using AI. So even before the verification agent logs in, the moment those loans are available in a set folder, the AI engine scans through, realizes that these additional loans are available, reads through all those loans, extracts the information that is required, matches it against the data that has been provided, creates a reconciliation report, which when the verification agent logs in, sees it as an exception report. The AI engines today are not 100% accurate. So the exception could be because there's genuine data discrepancy, or our AI engine could have made a mistake. The verification agent reviews if it's a mistake by the AI engine, corrects and certifies. The moment they certify, now this is a due diligence information available, and that certificate is on blockchain. The data or the files go into an IPFS folder, and an NFT is created for each loan, which means now for whatever happens through the life cycle of these loans, which is it's structured, resold in secondary market, I actually created an NFT which creates a record and a tracking mechanism for us through the life cycle. So it is, from blockchain industry parlance, the onboarding of real world asset on chain is what we are solving through this process, which is a two-step certification in a way. An AI engine has verified, then a financial institution has reviewed and certified for an NFT to be created. So it's not that a security was just tokenized and given for investment. When a person is looking at their security, they, as I said, zoom into the security to see a loan, and they are assured that this loan is verified and certified on chain as an NFT by the custodian.
And that's helpful. And I know that we'll go into a demo as well of the platform. Maybe before we go into that, if you guys can talk a little bit about some of the partnerships you've been able to cultivate with different players within the financial services industry, I think that would be helpful in terms of giving a sense of really, I mean, credit to you guys in terms of the amount of visibility and adoption you've been able to kind of garner and over these past few years. So maybe Eric, if you want to kind of speak to those partnerships so far, at least those that are publicly announced,
Sure.
and then we can go into a demo. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, no, happy to do so. And you're right. I think for us, obviously, the delivering the proof of concept of the platform, Intain Admin first, was certainly a tall order to try to get banks comfortable. That happened before my time, so that goes to Siddharth and team. But signing on that first partner, which was WSFS, Wilmington Savings Fund Society, which was operating trust business for ABS and MBS transactions. I think they saw the advantage that we presented in comparison to other tools that would exist in terms of trust administration for structured product. There's a host of other competitor software solutions, but generally a trustee would have to cobble 3 or 4 of those together in order to get a holistic solution. And our platform, Intain Admin, provided that holistic solution while promoting kind of the efficiencies that are generated in that data analytics that can be garnered from hosting some of the smart contracts and the waterfall calculations on chain. So WSFS was one of our first partners. We've got a multitude of deals that we run for them on the admin platform. UMB, United Missouri Bank, was another trustee partner that's come onto our platform, Intain Admin. They also use our AI verification tool for the purpose of loan and contract validation. And so that's a kind of a modular solution that also connects into the marketplace that Siddhartha was mentioning a bit ago. These trustee partners have also agreed to sign on and serve as verification agents, custodians, and trustees within the Intain Markets platform. So when we go through a demo, you'll see kind of those nodes, and each of those participants would be some of our current partners. We completed a proof of concept under an innovation challenge with Wells Fargo, which we were the only blockchain company selected out of 200, I think, that entered the competition. And that's where we really demonstrated the ability of Intain Markets and what it can do for structured credit, generating efficiencies, smaller deal sizing, all the things that we've talked about. In terms of additional partners, they announced it in I think it was an October asset-backed alert publication, so structured finance specific publication, but Wilmington Trust is also entered into the contract process to use us for some of their servicing or administration of deals. And we've been in conversations now with a number of larger institutions, large kind of bulge bracket banks, smaller community banks as well, for various factors. From a community bank perspective, the appeal of Intain Markets would allow them the access to structured credit that they typically wouldn't be able to do. Obviously, they're generating loans at a regular basis, but they tend not to have the volume to get through a warehouse facility into the securitization model. And so being able to do smaller deal sizes and attract even counterparty investors through their network, right? There's other community banks that may buy their home mortgage portfolio or their auto loan receivables. So it's really been a nice couple of months since the effective launch, gaining a lot of traction and a number of current financial partners. I don't know, Siddharth may have some additional commentary on who it is that we work with.
No, you captured it. So WSFS and UMB, existing partners, Wilmington Trust, which is part of M&T Bank. Without us saying much, it's what they said publicly, that they would be moving on to our platform on Intain Admin, and Intain Markets was piloted over 6 months with Wells Fargo. So that's what we can talk publicly at this stage.
Actually, let me ask you guys, because you've been in multi-month long discussions with these partners as well as others, and given our audience probably is a mix of those probably partnering with institutions as well as those coming from institutions. So would love to hear from you in terms of how you've gotten institutions comfortable with the idea of using the platform, which is obviously on blockchain, what those conversations have been like, and maybe some of the terminology or the way that you've basically just gotten them to focus on the fact that this is blockchain. It's not some of the other things that you hear about in the news, and how you distilled that. Would love to kind of hear your insights, since you've been deep in these discussions for multiple months, if not years. But would love to kind of hear, you know, the pitch, or the ways by which you've gotten people, you know, not only comfortable but excited, frankly, about the platform.
Yeah, so I think it's in two parts. One is about the solution, the other is about us as a company. So about the solution, as I said, that we built it as a digital platform, not just a blockchain network. So people, financial institutions that we talk to understand digital technologies and the efficiencies it brings. Blockchain provides the data rails. So that's why we were almost treated like pariahs in a lot of these early blockchain conferences. We sat out all the ICO, STO, NFT hype cycles in favor of just focusing on a compliant and comprehensive digital platform. And second, we work with all the trust intermediaries which are required for compliance. In fact, we are reducing compliance costs rather than sidestepping compliance. So that's as far as the digital solution is concerned. And then as you go into the architecture, Intain admin runs on private blockchains. When we decided to launch Intain markets, and we can discuss that in detail, that's the reason we chose an Avalanche subnet, because it caters to some of our requirements. The other part of partnering with financial institutions is how we run as an enterprise. And I know there are a lot of kind of philosophical convictions in the blockchain industry about DAOs, etc. In our company, all our financial institution partners can go to a due diligence folder and check background verification reports of our employees, which include SOFAC reports, etc. So there is nobody who's anonymous. Everybody, as I said, is an employee background check. People will find it very boring, but if you go through processes like ISO 27001 certification. So in a typical blockchain firm, which is 5 developers and 7, 8 marketing people, does a lot of exciting things. We do 70% of the things which are really, really boring, bureaucratic. And also because we have platforms and production, so we have to take care of support and testing, none of which sounds as innovative and exciting and world-changing as you would assume, but they are absolutely essential to be working with financial institutions. And I guess almost all our management comes from the other side. So that helps, means we haven't drunk any Kool-Aid at all.
I mean, I think there's a lot of the things that you guys are kind of making more efficient and speeding up. It's, to your point, it's maybe the less sexy things, but for me, it's definitely more exciting because, you know, especially coming from a traditional financial services background, you really come to appreciate where some of these efficiencies could be realized, and to kind of see it not only talked about, but actually in production and working, I think is particularly exciting, at least for me, and hopefully our audience.
Also,
as well.
how they calculate savings side. Sorry to, on the efficiency part, because so if you have to go and sell the idea that there will be a blockchain-based future and Web3 will come, you will mostly be talking to the digital assets team, which are always helpful. But in our case, because we are a very narrowly focused solution, we work only with structured finance. So the structured finance team has to buy into it. Otherwise, we are not offering any infrastructure, nothing, which means that the digital solution business case has to stand on its own. So I should be able to tell a verification agent that you come onto our platform, the AI automation is reducing the cost by 70%. What happens with this blockchain future, Web3, DeFi, does not matter to you. Next month, you are saving 70% costs. To a paying agent, we are saying that all your payment waterfalls are getting automated. Next month, you are saving 70, 80% costs. So that's just in terms of how we approach institutions.
That's actually a good point, because oftentimes I think, you know, the approach is, it's almost like you're fitting, what do they say, a solution in search of a problem. Like, how can we use this technology? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? But in your case, it's very much the other way around, which I almost feel like is the better and correct way to go, where you've identified very clear pain points and areas for improvement. And blockchain and AI just happen to be the means by which those things are solved, which I think, to your point, Siddhartha, really resonates with business people who have a business to run day in, day out, and who have very concrete pain points and frictions. And your solution, which happens to run on chain, solves that, or at least makes it better. So I think that's definitely the right way to kind of approach it. Let's talk a little bit about, and I know we'll do a demo in a little bit, but let's talk about the markets platform. I know you chose to build Intain Admin on Hyperledger, and then for your next product, Intain Markets, made the decision to choose Avalanche, specifically Avalanche subnets and its architecture that comes along with it. Tell us a little bit about the platform, the decision to launch on a subnet, what informed that, and then we can go from there.
Sure. So our experience has been on a private blockchain, which is Hyperledger Fabric. We have done MVPs on R3 Corda. So we're always clear that we'll be on private networks as much as that gets hated in the blockchain industry. Now, you cannot run a markets platform on a private network because there are many components of the markets which have to access, in a way, features provided by a public blockchain network. We never had an option where something which met our requirements could be used. And hence, means as you mentioned, we started in 2018. So we're really old in the space, and we never had a tech platform which we could use that met our requirements. And then we came across subnets. The initial discussion obviously helped because we are talking to people in the Avalabs team who understood financial services. So that helps just in terms of communicating, because we are not talking to a cult, which is a big problem we have had with a lot of kind of blockchain ecosystems. That means we are financial services people, we can't communicate with cults. So once we started developing, that subnet provides us 3-4 things. One, our infrastructure is completely US housed. So every single server VM is inside United States, and hence every piece of data is inside US. I know blockchain industry does not like US too much these days, but for us, it's completely housed inside US, which without subnet, we couldn't have ensured. Every validator is identified by us, KYC'd by us, and in future, we may even require validators to have certifications like FINRA certification, etc. So every validator that way is identified. These are two kind of really critical things. And then because while having a subnet, it allows us access into a public blockchain infrastructure with natively minted USDC, etc. That's an additional benefit, but that's really our driver.
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously couldn't have said it better myself, but I think we often talk about, subnets and their capabilities in terms of providing institutions and enterprise use cases, the best of both, public blockchain infrastructure and development with the more kind of enterprise specific chains that a lot of institutions are used to building on. But I think you guys are a prime and frankly, first institutional example of a use case actually using subnets to meet, whether it's regulatory considerations, other internal considerations that that are particularly relevant for institutions. I think these specific examples help to make some of those things more concrete. So whether it's permissioned validator set that's been KYC, that's based in the US jurisdictionally, and or we didn't talk about necessarily user permissioning or user access to the subnet. A lot of things I think you guys have taken advantage of, and to your point in terms of what you alluded to in terms of stablecoin ability to access, I think a lot of these things you have the optionality to continue to benefit from the growing C chain, which is the public permissionless chain, and all the integrations that come from there. If and when we get greater regulatory clarity, I think the optionality remains intact. So I think you definitely hit the nail on the head there as well, Siddhartha. In terms of the demo, Eric, I know we have a demo that we want to share. everyone. If you want to play to maybe walk us through what that looks like. I always get excited when there's actually like not just a prototype, but actually a working product that we can share. Would love to kind of have you share that and also just maybe walk us through what we're looking at. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. And maybe it should be mentioned as well, and I think Siddhartha touched on it, just in terms of the product people within Avalanche as well have been helpful in the design and development, right? So, you're talking to folks such as yourself, Morgan, who come from financial services background. Some of the, from the top down, we've had a great experience. So I think it's worth noting in your call that's also been helpful when building out the subnet. As you mentioned, I think we were one of the first institutional subnets designed and built, and a lot of that was kind of a back and forth with your team and our team. So a great process altogether. But happy to demonstrate now what it was that we developed and effective as of the 31st of January. The subnet was live, and so we're working with our first asset originator on a pool of loans currently, and hopefully we'll have that up in the next couple of weeks. So without further ado, I will share my screen. And so before I press play, just to set the stage, right? So this is kind of the architecture for those that are familiar, right, with the C chain and then the subnet, right? So this is where we're housed here below, and begin our process with the issuer, which is the asset originator, that particular entity that's looking to raise some capital against their loan. So, like I said, I'll get to it. So again, we built the subnet here with the marketplace asset originator in mind, and a lender that wants to bring in their loans in exchange for capital. First, they upload those loans into a master file containing underlying loan data in the contracts themselves. Through which we enable that issuer to map those loans to criteria filtered pools for verification and deal creation. Once that filtering is completed and the issuer has selected the capital amount, these loans then can be mapped to that pool. And now that pool of refined loans can be submitted to the verification agent for review, and thus solving the real asset on-ramp issue that plagues many blockchains. So we've taken a conventional loan or a OCA and brought it on chain for further processing. So here's where we have the verification agent step in. This would be one of those partner banks that we currently work with. They're tasked with reviewing the underlying loan contracts and certifying the pool is valid. Within Intain Markets, we've integrated that process with an AI tool, reducing that manual burden as we discussed, and automating the creation of digital records. So the NFTs being generated from this process. They log in, they accept the pool. The AI has already produced the exception report. They can review the data points. If everything matches, they simply click submit and again create those NFTs. So now we've got a digital copy of that loan, and the underwriter comes into the platform. So these would be, investment banks, smaller underwriter outfits come in and assess the quality of the collateral loans and start structuring those into risk-adjusted tranches based on that credit criteria and other asset components. Through Intain Markets, we've connected that underwriter to that digitally verified loan pool. There's some structuring tools available based on asset classes, or again, they can upload their own capital structure of that particular deal. Once that structure is uploaded, those payment rules are modeled as smart contracts by us, and then the tranches are displayed based on that verified loan pool and the capital structure. So now we've got our payment rules, and from here, the underwriter can publish that offering for the issuer approval, which mints the fungible tokens for possible investment. So we've not exchanged capital yet. This is just creating those tranches for investors to review. So the investor, is able to access the platform, review opportunities that kind of strike their fancy, right? They can filter those down to asset class, weighted average coupon, whatever criteria it is that they use to assess whether or not it's a viable investment opportunity. But once they see an opportunity that meets their demand, they click on that deal. And then can drill down into specifics. So they'll see the payment rules, basic details. They'll see the asset category, issuer origination and concentration, and the tranches themselves. Our investor then can drill down further, as we discussed, and actually look at the pools that were brought into that particular tranche. And you get this a simple sample structure, but you get the gist. There could be 1,000 loans. They can drill down into each individual loan. But assuming they see something they like, they can proceed to invest, and the platform accommodates that funding via USDC by connecting that investor's compatible third-party wallet, such as MetaMask or Coinbase, But USDC could be replaced with CBDC. RLN, that was one of the things that we piloted with the Wells Fargo pitch, which was the ability to take that kind of liability network or any other favored digital currency, right? We've created the optionality within the platform. But we also have an off-chain settlement that we've designed as well, where wire confirmation through the trustee is actually going to confirm a settlement of investment. At any point, then we would still, through the smart contract, be able to confirm that receipt and investment, and from there the corresponding amount of fungible token is delivered directly into that investor wallet or the designee / custodian that they may have assigned. From there, now you can see you've got the instant settlement once that connection occurs, and at lower capital commitment, you've been able to purchase into structured credit. And so from there, again, you see confirmation of purchase, and it's a holistic infrastructure, as we mentioned, kind of the integration of other counterparties. So from the servicer's perspective, they're tasked with collecting the repayments from the borrowers on that asset pool. So again, with credit cards, fix and flip loans, whatever it may be, they've got to bring in that servicer file. And we've automated that process, right? We built out the tape cracker. They simply upload that particular Excel sheet, typically could come through an API, but at any event, it's uploaded into our platform, and we model out the tape cracker, thus standardizing the cash flow and the waterfall distribution against the smart contracts that we wrote for that particular capital structure. And so within a matter of a few clicks of a button, that reconciliation is already completed. And from there now, again, from an asset level perspective, those data points are going to be available from the investor. So as soon as that servicer information is received into the platform, I now have loan level detail, payment history on each particular loan that's in that pool. And again, we've connected the workflow, as Siddharth had mentioned, right? That's a lot of the heavy lifting. And so the servicer, completes their process, and then that, in the traditional finance sense, that data has to go to the trustee. The trustee then has to interpret that collateral performance against the governing conditions within the indenture. And again, we've automated that process. This is a lot of what we've been doing on Intain admin. So the smart contracts are already dictating, based on that capital structure and the asset class and all the rules that were built into the deal through the governing documents, that this is the payment waterfall based on the information that we just received from the servicer. And so from there, the trustee can simply hit approve payment, and the exact amount is going to go to the tranche investors. And again, I think from an institutional perspective, we also realize that, that there's not going to be too many buyers that are likely to look at asset performance and investment performance through an Aviscan or BlockScan, right? They're going to want to have an interactive kind of process mirroring what they might see in traditional markets. And so there we built out this robust analytics engine, right? So the information that runs through blockchain is then extracted and presented back in a manner where an investor can drill down into the asset level detail, look at concentration limits, drill down into the single loan, various charting options available. This is a real estate transaction that's showing that I can look at concentration by state. I can drill down to the city. I could filter that by FICO score. And so, as I say, it's a very interactive kind of database then that exists, all based off the information that was run through blockchain. And so that's our subnet in a quick review. Happy to answer any questions or go through the process in more detail.
That was a really good voiceover, Eric. I know it was an automated video.
Thanks.
I think beyond or beside the MetaMask part, everything else feels very Web 2, which I get excited about, because a lot of us talk about, like, how can we obfuscate away the Web 3 components and the blockchain components so that people get comfortable and really lower the barriers to entry to actually using various applications. And I think you guys have done a very good job about just ensuring that that is something that is powering the transactions that you're seeing on your site, but it's not the feature, which oftentimes I feel like scares people or increases like the hurdles or barriers to entry. So I think that was a great demo to really show what the obfuscation of the blockchain and AI tech could look like. So I know we're kind of wrapping up with time right now, but maybe let me hand it over to both you, Siddhartha and Eric, if there's any final words that you want to kind of leave our audience with. If people want to learn more, how do they learn more? Where do they learn more? How do they reach you guys? And then we could wrap it up after that.
Sure. We can share our mail IDs, plus we write extensively. So every decision we take on our design, on our architecture, on our solution, we publish Medium blogs. So There's a lot of public information available about our complete design and process. We are most willing to do demos. In fact, we are amongst the few who don't sell a concept. We, in the first call with our clients, we just tell them that have a look at the demo. This is like a 6-minute video, and hence we had to condense it as a video. So that's really what I would want to tell everybody, that we'll kind of share our Medium blogs. They're very, very extensive, and happy to provide any additional information. Also, just want to stress that while what you saw is Intain Markets, which was launched last month after that extensive pilot, which we did with Wells Fargo, this is running on the base of 3 years in production of Intain admin, on which deals are being onboarded every month on almost like a routine, boring Web2 kind of tech platform basis. That means nobody needs to do a press release for every deal that is being onboarded.
Yeah, and I would also just share from a viewer's perspective, if you're an asset originator or you're looking to use some funds to diversify your own investment portfolio, right? We kind of build it from an institutional mindset, but that it's, think of the platform as a more efficient mechanism to raise capital as a loan originator, and then from a purchaser of investments, that obviously from a structured perspective, you can diversify your risk, right? Buffer yourself away from the single asset purchase. And now you've got structured credit, available at a fraction of the cost. So really, an infrastructure that connects kind of the buy and the sell side with all of the counterparties connected, so that you've got the trust of the traditional markets built into a digital process.
Awesome. And I don't know if everyone can see the chat window, but I put the link to your Medium in this chat here, so hopefully everyone can see it. But if not, feel free to reach out directly to me or Siddhartha and Eric. I'm sure you're okay with people reaching out to you via LinkedIn or Twitter. We're all pretty available in terms of having discussions about whether it's Avalanche subnets or Intain admin or markets. But really big thank you to both of you for joining us today. Always love talking to you guys, and really kind of getting into the details of the platform and really, what it's been able to enable, and really excited for kind of what's to come for you guys and for the platform as well. But thank you guys tremendously for joining us today. And thank you to the audience for dialing in and joining as well. Again, if anybody wants to learn more, please feel free to reach out to me directly or to the Intain team. And with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody.